Picture a master yogi achieving ultimate enlightenment.
Right. I'm not
You're
quite
like,
pouring it.
you're imagining like a shaved head, a remote mountain cave, absolute silence.
Oh, yeah, like decades of grueling, isolated starvation.
Exactly. That's the image, right? But what if I told you the fastest path to profound mystical power actually involves a 30-something woman drinking Pinot Noir at a crowded dinner party?
Wait, really? A dinner party?
Yeah, a regular dinner party. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are taking you on a journey that completely shatters the conventional, culturally ingrained wisdom about what it actually takes to radically shift your reality.
I mean, the contrast between our expectations of mystical growth and the reality we're going to explore today, it really forces us to rethink everything.
It totally flips the script.
Yeah, we have to ask whether the barriers to entry for profound personal transformation, the ones constantly sold to us by the modern wellness industry, are actually as high as we've always been led to believe.
I really don't think they are. And our guide for this exploration is such a fascinating figure. We're looking at teachings from Osman.
Right, he's widely known as the Blind Muslim Yogi.
Exactly. For context, Osman is an entrepreneur, and he's a master-level bioenergy healer.
Yeah, and his specialization is wild. He focuses on critical care, recovery, terminal illnesses.
And he's been doing this for a long time. He's been a yoga and meditation teacher since way back in 1981.
That is over 50 years of advanced practice.
Yeah, 50 years. He even mentions that he achieved his first samadhi experience by the age of 19.
Which is just incredible, but there's a really crucial detail we need to establish about him.
Right, about his eyesight.
Exactly. He is permanently blind, and he has been since May of 2023.
So when you're watching his videos, you might notice something. Whenever you hear him use these incredibly vivid visual descriptions, he's drawing on decades of visual memory from having normal eyesight prior to that.
Yeah, he layers those visual memories over a deeply scientific approach to these ancient practices.
And calling his approach scientific is really the key to understanding his entire philosophy, right?
Oh, absolutely. The term scientific is the correct way to frame this. He does not treat yoga and meditation as purely esoteric, undefinable magic.
Right, it's not just mystical woo-woo.
No, not at all. He treats it as a reproducible methodology. It's a hard science of the mind and body.
So our mission today is to extract the practical mechanics from Osman's teachings. We're doing that by analyzing a specific, truly remarkable case study he shares about one of his students.
I love this case study because we get to see how ancient practices intersect with the messy, everyday friction of modern life.
Yeah, it gets real very fast. But before we get into the wild results this student achieved, and I mean, these are mind-bending, reality-altering results we have to establish a boundary.
A very important boundary, yeah.
Osman himself puts this right at the top of his teachings. When we start talking about energy, healing, and physiology, we need to be clear about what this is and what this isn't.
Right. Osman states clearly that his therapies and practices are entirely natural-based. Yeah.
They are designed to replenish lost energy and boost natural immunity, but they're absolutely not a replacement for medical treatment.
We have to be super clear on that.
Exactly. If you are dealing with any medical condition, you must seek the consultation and advice of a qualified, licensed medical professional.
Right. These practices are presented as complementary. They enhance medical care, but they aren't a substitute for modern medicine.
Exactly. Osman actually offers these complementary services to enhance care, and his mission is to encourage a scientific approach by simplifying these ancient methodologies.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's look at the subject of this case study because her profile is entirely counterintuitive to what we think of as an advanced spiritual practitioner.
Whoa, totally. She breaks every stereotype.
This is just an average, everyday woman. Prior to meeting Osman, she had absolutely zero known experience with yoga.
None at all. A complete beginner.
Yeah, she wasn't spending her weekends at $2,000 wellness retreats in Sedona. She wasn't, reading ancient texts or trying to align her chakras. She was a complete blank slate. And in the realm of behavioral change or skill acquisition, having no prior habits or preconceived notions is a massive advantage.
Really? You think so?
Oh, for sure. It's often overlooked.
Yeah.
She didn't have to unlearn any toxic wellness culture trends or rigid performative dogmas. She just adopted a highly minimalist practice without any ideological baggage.
And when we say minimalist, I mean that barely covers it. We are talking 20 to 30 minutes a day.
Just think about your own life for a second.
Right. That is less time than you probably spend mindlessly scrolling through your phone while waiting for your coffee to brew in the morning.
Exactly. She wasn't doing extreme 10-hour daily meditations. She wasn't taking vows of silence.
Now, Osman does mention one specific caveat. She took what he calls an advanced level initialization from him.
Right, the initialization.
And he actually attributes the remarkable speed of her progress to this initialization acting as a catalyst.
So let's break down what an initialization actually means in this context, because it sounds like a mystical download.
Yeah, it sounds like he just handed her a USB drive of enlightenment.
Right, but there's a strong physiological equivalent to it. Think of it as a deeply resonant neurological primer.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, when a master practitioner, someone who has spent decades cultivating a highly coherent internal frequency, works directly with a student, they can temporarily induce a state of profound physiological coherence in that student's nervous system.
Oh, wow. So they kind of sync up.
Exactly. It's like taking a guitar string that has never been played and tuning it to a master tuning fork. The student gets a visceral, biological taste of the end goal.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, so when she goes home to do her 20-minute daily practice, her brain and nervous system already know the exact frequency they're trying to tune back into.
That clears up so much. It's not magic, it's just providing a physiological reference point. And her daily maintenance of that reference point was just that 20 to 30 minutes.
And in behavioral psychology, the #1 killer of a new habit is the barrier to entry.
Oh, totally. If it's too hard, you just quit.
Right. If a practice requires you to uproot your entire schedule, buy special equipment, and change your entire identity, it becomes a disruptive force. The friction is just too high.
So by keeping it to 20 or 30 minutes, it became a sustainable integration rather than a temporary disruption.
Exactly. It just fit into her life.
Which brings me to the part of her story that I found the most validating. Her social reality.
Yes, this is the best part.
She lived a completely normal life. She blended perfectly with society. She attended parties. The source material specifically notes she drank alcoholic beverages, wine, liquor. She partook.
A very normal 30-something life.
Yeah, and she maintained a generally omnivore diet, even though Osman recommended she lean toward plant-based when possible. She did not become a rigid, judgmental ascetic living on a mountain.
What's fascinating here is that she didn't withdraw from the world to find peace. She actively participated in the friction of normal human existence.
I actually have to push back on the traditional narrative here because isn't the whole point of spiritual enlightenment traditionally framed around extreme discipline?
It usually is, yeah. Asceticism.
Great denial of the flesh. Look at the modern Instagram yogi aesthetic. It is entirely about green juices, waking up at 4 a.m. to plunge into an ice bath, and projecting this image of absolute, unyielding purity.
It's exhausting just looking at it.
It really is. So how can someone be spiritually evolving while throwing back a glass of Pinot Noir at a crowded dinner party? It just feels totally contradictory.
Well, if your spiritual peace requires you to be in a perfectly quiet room, eating a perfectly pure diet, and avoiding all complex human interactions, we have to ask a serious question.
What's that?
How robust is that peace, really?
It sounds pretty fragile.
Extremely fragile. It is entirely dependent on a highly controlled artificial environment. The moment that person hits a traffic jam or has a difficult conversation, their peace shatters.
That is such a good point.
What Osman is describing with this student is a robust, resilient state of being. The 20 to 30 minutes of practice wasn't an escape from her life. It was the anchor that allowed her to navigate her life.
Right, so parties, an omnivorous diet, alcohol, social complexities. She handled all of it without losing her center.
Exactly. True integration isn't about extreme diets or performative purity. It's about internal consistency, regardless of the external environment.
So the practice is the anchor, not the entire ship. On the surface, she just seemed like a normal woman in her 30s living a modern life.
But beneath the surface, her internal energy architecture was fundamentally changing.
Right. And I want to take this robust, everyday peace she cultivated and apply it to the one area of life where almost everyone loses their zen.
Oh boy, dating.
Dating, yes. The source material explains that before this breakthrough, she was single in her 30s and losing hope.
The psychosocial pressure cooker of the 30-something dilemma.
It is brutal. Think about the last time you felt that invisible ticking clock in your own life. Society puts this immense weight on us.
And Osman points out a very real danger that arises from this pressure, which is desperation.
Yeah, he explicitly talks about how when people hit that stage and the fear of ending up alone sets in, they panic.
They really do. They get into any type of relationship just to be in one.
Right. They commit to the wrong person purely as a defense mechanism against loneliness.
Desperation is, at its core, a state of profound biological and energetic dysregulation.
Okay, unpack that for me. What do you mean by dysregulation?
When you operate from desperation, your amygdala is hijacked. You are essentially in a low-grade state of fight or flight all the time.
So you're just constantly stressed out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what happens when you are in that state? Your boundaries collapse. You ignore glaring red flags because your brain is prioritizing immediate safety.
And it perceives safety as simply having a partner, regardless of who it is.
Exactly. It values that over long-term compatibility. You project your deep desire for connection onto people who are entirely unsuited for you.
Because your internal state is chaotic, you naturally attract and accept chaotic or misaligned external circumstances.
That's the mechanism, yeah. Osman recognized this chaotic state in her, but he gave her a very specific prediction.
Yeah, he told her that as she balanced her energies through her daily 20 to 30-minute practice, she would attract her soulmate.
He didn't say, go on more dating apps. He didn't give her pickup lines.
Right. He just said, balance your energy.
Yeah.
And within 12 months, it happened. They met, they connected perfectly, and they committed.
And the logistics of how they met are just wild.
Truly. They were from opposite ends of the globe. And the man made the ultimate sacrifice to relocate, changing his entire life, crossing the world just to be with her.
The magnitude of that external shift happening in just 12 months requires us to really look at the mechanism.
Well, what does this all mean? I'm trying to visualize the mechanics of this. Is balancing your internal energy like finally tuning a radio dial to the exact right frequency?
That's a great way to look at it.
Like you've been living with all this static, the desperation, the anxiety, the terrible dates, and this 20-minute daily centering practice slowly turns the dial.
It cuts through the white noise.
Exactly. It cuts through the white noise of your own anxiety, and once the static clears, the right signal can finally come through.
The radio dial is the perfect framework for this. When you are operating from desperation, you are broadcasting static, and you are only receptive to static.
So what is a 20-minute centering practice actually doing to the body to change that?
It shifts the autonomic nervous system. It pulls you out of sympathetic dominance, that fight or flight anxiety, and shifts you into parasympathetic regulation.
Okay, so you're actually calming the physical hardware.
Yes. When you are no longer vibrating with the primal fear of, I need to find someone to survive, you fundamentally change the data you project into a room.
It changes your physical presence.
Entirely. Your microexpressions relax. The tone of your voice drops to a more resonant pitch. The way you hold eye contact changes.
You aren't just scanning the room with this anxious hypervigilance.
Right. And most importantly, the boundaries you set naturally become firmer because you are deeply comfortable in your own presence. You are no longer a match for chaotic, misaligned partners because you just won't tolerate the static anymore.
So the fact that this man crossed the globe implies a magnetism that is incredibly strong. It wasn't about her trying harder on dates.
No, it was about her becoming a highly coherent signal. She fundamentally changed the data she was projecting to the world, and the world responded in kind.
It's wild. Osman views love not as a roadblock to the spiritual path, but as a core expression of a balanced frequency.
And that concept of interpersonal love serves as a bridge to Osman's deeper teachings.
Because if finding a soulmate is a major milestone for this student, Osman takes the actual concept of love to a completely cosmic extreme when discussing his own experiences with advanced enlightenment.
Yes, his experience of samadhi.
If you ask the average person on the street to describe what enlightenment feels like, they will almost always describe a void.
Right, a state of nothingness.
Exactly. Absolute, quiet, detached emptiness. Like floating in a dark, silent room. But Osman's personal description of spiritual advancement, the state called samadhi, is the exact opposite of an empty void.
He describes it as an experience of infinite love.
And he describes a sensation that really challenges our very definition of peace. It is not a mild, pleasant affection.
No, it sounds like an emotional supernova.
He says to take any feeling of love you've ever had in your life, the most amazing, profound, heart-bursting love you've ever felt, and multiply it infinitely.
He says it blows your mind.
He literally says you cannot endure it. He describes it feeling like your physical body is going to burst from the magnitude of the sensation.
It is so overwhelming that you actually struggle to stop it.
Think about that. You want the ultimate goal of meditation to stop because you can't endure the explosion.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, We have to analyze the profound friction between infinite energy and finite biology.
I have to admit, hearing that makes the ultimate goal of yoga sound terrifying. We always picture a placid lake. This sounds like standing inside the core of the sun.
Right.
Why would anyone want to reach a state that feels like an explosion you desperately want to stop? Isn't the whole point to find tranquility?
We're thinking about the biological hardware of the human nervous system. It is a system evolved over millions of years, primarily to keep you safe from predators, help you find food, and ensure you reproduce.
Basic survival stuff.
Exactly. The vagus nerve, the sensory receptors, the neural pathways, their capacity to process electrical and emotional input is strictly finite. They have a ceiling.
They're built for the plains of the savannah, not the cosmos.
Precisely. What Osman is describing in Samadhi is a moment where human consciousness successfully taps into a universal frequency of absolute infinite love.
But here's the critical bottleneck, right?
Yeah.
The practitioner is trying to channel that infinite, boundless energy through finite biological hardware.
They're trying to power a standard household desk lamp by plugging it directly into a nuclear reactor.
Yeah, the lamp isn't going to glow brighter. The circuitry is going to completely melt down.
The bursting sensation Osman describes is the nervous system suddenly acting as a conduit for a voltage it wasn't built to handle.
Which shifts our entire perspective on what spiritual evolution actually entails.
It is not a dulling of the senses into a quiet apathy. It is an overwhelming hyperactivation of connection.
And the reason you would instinctively want it to stop is simply biological self-preservation.
Exactly. The hardware feels the current of this infinite love and sends panic signals because it fears it will disintegrate under the load.
That redefines enlightenment from detachment to absolute overwhelming connection.
It's beautiful, but intense.
So intense. Now, if that immense explosive energy is what's waiting at the peak of samadhi, how did this average woman, the student, doing her 20 minutes a day, begin to tap into and wield a smaller fraction of that energy in her daily life?
Because she didn't just stay in her internal Zen state.
Right. She started externalizing it.
We move from internal regulation to an active external influence on biological matter.
Which brings us to the crisis with her pet.
This part of the story is incredible.
The student faced a heartbreaking situation. She had a favorite pet, a companion of over 13 years, her absolute best friend, and the pet fell seriously ill.
It got to the point where the vet declared there was nothing more to be done, and it was time to put the animal down.
Anyone who has loved an animal knows the profound devastation of that moment. The source notes she was deeply depressed. She was facing the imminent loss of a profound bond.
And in her desperation, because she knew Osman was a master-level bioenergy healer with telepathic healing capabilities, she reached out to him.
Right. He specializes in critical care and terminal illnesses using quantum and entanglement principles, so she naturally wanted him to save the pet.
But Osman did something incredibly empowering. He didn't say, "Bring the pet to me, I will heal it."
Right. He confidently told her, no, on a level you will be able to.
He gave her a simple recommendation, a specific protocol to follow, and put the power entirely in her hands.
He recognized that her daily, consistent practice had already built the necessary architecture within her nervous system.
He wasn't giving her a magic trick. He was telling her to use the tools she had been sharpening for months.
And she used it. By utilizing her mind and her physical touch, following his recommendation, this everyday woman successfully healed her pet.
The vet didn't put the animal down.
No. Osman notes that he connected with her months later, and the pet was still thriving, still going for its morning walks.
We really need to approach this with heavy analytical rigor, because reversing a terminal biological decline in another living creature through mind and touch is a massive leap from finding a soulmate.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because I am naturally skeptical of this.
Sure, most people would be.
It's one thing to say, I meditated and now I feel less anxious. It is an entirely different universe to say, I meditated, touched a dying animal, and reversed cellular decline.
It sounds like sci-fi.
Right. If doing the 20-minute daily practice is like upgrading the operating system on your own personal computer so it runs smoother, what is happening here?
Did she become a router, broadcasting a high-powered healing signal to an entirely different biological device?
Exactly. How does a 20-minute daily practice unlock the ability to physically heal another organism?
To understand this without resorting to magical thinking, we have to look at the physics of entrainment.
Okay, lay it on me.
In 1665, a physicist named Christian Huygens noticed that if you put two pendulum clocks on the same wall, No matter how differently they start out, they will eventually synchronize and swing in perfect harmony.
Wait, just by being on the same wall?
Yes, the stronger, more stable rhythm forces the weaker, chaotic rhythm to align with it through microvibrations in the wall.
That is wild.
And this happens in biology too. If you place individual heart muscle cells in a petri dish, they will beat at their own random rhythms. But the moment they touch, they synchronize.
They entrain to a single, unified rhythm.
Exactly. So in this scenario, her nervous system became the dominant pendulum.
Osman makes a specific point about this. He says she was reaching an advanced level in a sensitive state simply by being consistent.
We often assume that the ability to manipulate energy or facilitate healing is a supernatural gift reserved for gurus.
Right, like you have to be born with it.
But Osman's framework suggests that this capability is standard human hardware, just lying dormant. The 20 to 30 minutes a day is the installation process.
So when you sit in stillness and regulate your breath, you clear the static, your nervous system begins to transmit a highly coherent, resonant frequency.
And the dying pet is the chaotic frequency.
Ah, I see. When a human being with a highly coherent, stable frequency physically touches a biological organism that is in a state of chaotic decline like a sick pet, the stronger, coherent frequency can influence the weaker one.
She essentially attuned the pet's failing physiological systems back to a stable rhythm using her own cultivated energy.
She acted as a biological tuning fork for the animal's nervous system.
It's incredible. And if a totally average person can achieve this in under a year with a minimal daily commitment, think about what you listening to this right now are walking around capable of, completely unaware.
We are walking around with supercomputers in our pockets, but we're only using them to play solitaire.
It really forces us to reconsider the limits of the human body.
And this external manifestation of healing was deeply linked to the ultimate internal milestone she reached, an experience that fundamentally altered her own biological baseline.
The breathless state.
Yes, the breathless state. This is where the story gets physiologically confounding.
It really does.
The source describes an occasion where the student was meditating. She was simply observing her breath, a very standard technique. But slowly, she noticed her breath getting lesser and lesser.
It kept slowing down until she reached a point where she sensed she was no longer breathing at all.
Or, as Osman carefully caveats, the breath became so incredibly fine that it was entirely undetectable to her own senses.
In the science of yoga, this is a highly documented and incredibly significant milestone.
Osman identifies it specifically as the breathless state. It is a hallmark of higher evolution in meditation.
But the timeline is what makes this a paradox.
Yeah, she achieved this within a 12-month period, 1 year. From zero experience, living a normal life, to reaching a physiological state that ascetics dedicate entire lifetimes trying to attain.
This raises an important question. Let's analyze the physiology of what is actually happening when the body stops demanding breath, because it shatters our modern understanding of biological necessity.
From a purely biological standpoint, breathing is the literal definition of keeping the body alive. We breathe to oxygenate the blood, to feed the brain, to keep the heart pumping.
Right.
So does focusing so intently on the breath eventually eliminate the body's frantic need for it? Is it possible to be so deeply rested, so profoundly calm, that the body just goes into a temporary hibernation mode?
Think about our baseline state as modern humans. Why do we breathe the way we do?
Because we're stressed.
Exactly. The vast majority of our respiration is driven by the sympathetic nervous system. We are constantly micro-stressed by emails, traffic, news, societal pressures.
As a result, our breathing is shallow, rapid, and inefficient.
The human engine is constantly revving, burning fuel at an alarming rate, even when we're just sitting still at a desk.
We're idling at 4,000 RPMs all day long, burning through oxygen just to sustain our own anxiety.
Now imagine achieving a state of profound psychological and physiological safety, a state where the mind is completely still and the biological hardware senses absolute zero threat.
The metabolic requirements of the body plummet.
The brainwaves shift out of erratic beta waves and down into deep delta or theta states. The heart rate slows dramatically.
Because the engine is completely at rest, it requires significantly less oxygen to sustain cellular respiration.
So the breathless state is not a sensation of suffocating. It is the ultimate biological efficiency.
It is the physical body saying, I am so safe and so perfectly at rest that I barely need to exchange gas with the outside world to sustain my life force.
It is the ultimate biological peace. The physical body temporarily dissolves its urgent, frantic reliance on the external environment.
And the fact that she reached this state while maintaining her normal, everyday life is the entire point. It wasn't an escape from reality, it was a profound integration with it.
Which brings us to Osman's motivation for sharing this incredibly detailed case study in the first place.
He explicitly says the story is meant to be an encouragement.
Because he knows that people get distracted, they get intimidated.
You look at these ancient sciences and think, that's too time-consuming, it's too difficult, I can't twist myself into a pretzel, and I definitely don't have 3 hours a day to sit in silence.
The aesthetic of wellness has essentially gatekept the actual practice of wellness.
The modern wellness industry thrives on complicating ancient simplicity to sell you a lifestyle. Osman is stripping it entirely back to the bare functional mechanics.
He offers what I like to call the bed rest solution.
I love this. He highlights this incredibly practical, frictionless advice. You don't even need a yoga mat.
You don't need expensive clothes or a serene candlelit studio.
The postures and the protocol he recommends can be done entirely in the comfort of your own bed.
It is a radical democratization of mystical advancement. He is removing every possible excuse.
And we want to make sure you know exactly how to access this. Osman has developed a specific 5-minute yoga and meditation protocol, and he offers it completely for free on his YouTube channel and website.
You don't have to guess what to do or piece it together yourself.
You can visit his website directly at yogawellness786.com to download it. That's yogawellness786.com. He says you can do it in your bed without contorting yourself into difficult positions.
And that you can start experiencing noticeable, positive changes to your natural energy from the very first 5-minute practice.
When you synthesize this entire journey, it paints a picture of human potential that is deeply optimistic.
We've tracked a trajectory from a simple, free 5-minute protocol that you can do in bed to finding a soulmate across the globe by regulating your internal frequency,
To saving a beloved pet's life through the physics of entrainment.
all the way up to reaching a breathless state of higher biological evolution.
And for Osman himself, experiencing the mind-blowing supernova of infinite love and samadhi.
It proves that consistency is the master key, not extremism. A small, daily commitment to your own internal energy architecture can radically alter the external reality you experience.
You don't have to quit your job or move to a mountain to touch the profound.
It's not about what you must give up. It's about what you gently, consistently integrate into the life you already have.
We've covered an incredible arc today, exploring Osman's scientific approach to mysticism and the awe-inspiring journey of an everyday woman who simply decided to show up for herself for 20 minutes a day.
It changes how we look at the people around us, and more importantly, how we look at ourselves.
Thank you for coming along on this deep dive with us.
I want to leave you with one final thing to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
What's that?
If an average person living a totally normal social life can unlock states of infinite love, tap into telepathic healing to save a life, and achieve profound biological suspension with just a tiny fraction of their daily time, what vast undiscovered continents of potential are currently lying completely dormant inside you, just waiting for 5 minutes of your attention?